fascinating expression of relationship that I think can be instructive. That's what we're made to do. We are made to covenant with one another and to keep choosing to covenant with each other. Keep choosing each other. What are you called to do right now? What is God bringing to mind? How does God call you? What does that mean? For Queen, the audience was their reason for being. We're four misfits who don't belong together. We're playing for the other misfits. They're the outcasts right at the back of the room. We're pretty sure they don't belong either. We belong to them. When Freddie came back to the group asking for their forgiveness for having left to try to do things on his own way, this is what he told the group. I went to Munich, I hired a bunch of guys, I told them exactly what to do, and the problem was, they did it. No pushback from Roger, none of Brian's rewrites, none of John's funny looks. I need you, you need me. He recognized that just having people follow everything that he wants them to do is not successful, for one. It's not even reality. We're not meant to just follow blindly one another. We're meant to be in community, to lead together, to navigate life together, to sometimes disagree, or maybe a lot of times disagree, and then choose each other, listen. Individuals with and without families, gifted in disparate ways, we're all, nevertheless, drawn together by the possibility of music to reach beyond difference, hurt, and frustration, and to bring hope to their audience through their brilliant music. I definitely asked permission from Alexander for using these pictures, but one thing that is so beautiful about the character of Lysander is that he doesn't really care what people think about him. I mean, obviously, he wants his family to love him and that kind of thing, but he wanted to wear Greer's ballet leotard, and he looked good in it. He wants to be barefoot. You know, he's got great feet. So he brings his flip-flops with him everywhere so that he can get into restaurants and, you know, things like that. But he has felt like a misfit. I felt like a misfit. Have you felt like a misfit? Freud, good old Freud, asserted that love and work are the bedrock of our mental health and our very humanity. Love and work. Except he had a warped view of what that meant. And it took things to the extreme because too many people listened to him. Love has been industrialized into the one-note Hollywood model of romance, and work has metastasized into aching workaholism. And it follows us into our church activities and with our children and with our grandchildren. We see these young ones overworked, overscheduled, right? But Bertrand Russell, one of the deepest and most nuanced thinkers, and I've quoted him quite often, was closer to the subtle truth, which we as a culture are still struggling to enact, that while love and work are central to a good life, that we can work and love together, romantic love is not the only or even necessarily the most rewarding pinnacle of love. It's finicky, right? says it is in curiosity and in purpose, versus the machine of wage for labor. Just as work alone is not enough for a fulfilling life, love alone is not enough for a fulfilling relationship, romantic or otherwise. Not that kind of love. No partner of equals, that is, no truly satisfying partnership, a marriage, two people who covenant together to go join the army or to go to work together or to school together, can be complete without each other recognizing and respecting in the other a sense of purpose beyond the relationship. So we see into each other's potential, not just what I want you to be or you want me to be. A contribution to the world that reflects and advances that person's deepest values and most impassioned dreams. In turn, adding creative, intellectual, and spiritual fuel to the shared fire of the relationship. When we see into each other what God is calling each other to do, and we also support one another instead of saying, do it my way. The beautiful power and the love that can come from that. But we're threatened by our friend or lover who dreams and thinks about things that are different from our own ideas of future trajectories. That somehow, if you are equipped to move ahead in one direction and I am pulled in another, it follows that we must unequivocally part ways. But what if we create a map to include 4-dimensional space? And the roads that are essentially parallel, but at a different angle. Then I can still reach out a hand if you happen to trip. And you can encourage me when I am discouraged, because really, we're doing this together. How many times have you been told, you can't do that? You're just a girl. You're just not fit enough. Or please don't do that, it would kill your father or sister or whomever. But what are we called to do? How is God calling you, and us even, as a congregation? To change the world, sometimes we need to change the story about how we see a thing. There isn't a most beautiful way, a most beautiful person, because there are so many kinds of beauty. There isn't a best way to go about a thing, because there are so many creative ways to do a thing. Christ died to make all things new, all things right. Jesus is making, in the making, with us, all things new. So if it's new, maybe we need to keep doing things in a new way. You are unique, and I am unique. How can we think that it's a good thing to try to do things like they have always been done? Not that I've heard anybody here say exactly that. Other churches. Then neither of us are going to be our very best selves. Our true selves, made in the very image of the God of the universe. When we follow in the way of a person or an idea, it looks right, because it looks right, or it worked for that person or group, we make that way into an idol. An idol is something or someone that captures the gaze, the line of sight, and compels one to worship the thing itself. An icon is a work or being that, on the other hand, is a work or being that, however imperfect, points the gaze outward. This is what an icon does. Onto the self, or even beyond the self. An icon reflects the inspiration, the spirit of the artist. It suggests the character of the one who was moved to create the thing that speaks about, communicates what is happening in the unique soul of that person. It is meant to move us to interpret and even be motivated by us. So there's a little bit more on how we see a thing, the light shining off that person. John Vanier said, I am not, and he died a few years ago, people called him a saint. And he said, I'm not a saint. And he said, God is the light. We reflect, or we are the only ones who make shadow. We are not the source of the light. But we can reflect that light onto the world. What is God calling you to do? And what do you do when God calls? How do you know it is God that is calling? I keep wanting to make my sermons shorter and keep failing at that. I apologize. Will you listen to this one poem by Pierre de Chardin and let the Spirit of God speak to you about being still in listening, because it requires that we actually listen. He says, above all, trust in the slow work of God. We are quite naturally impatient in everything. We're impatient to reach the end without delay. We should like to skip the intermediate stages. We are impatient of being on the way to something unknown, something new, and yet it is the law of all progress that is made. It is made by passing through some of the stages of instability, and that it may take a very long time. And so I think it is with you. Your ideas mature gradually. Let them grow. Let them shape themselves without undue haste. Don't fight it. Don't try to force them on as though you could be today what time, that is to say, grace and circumstance acting on your own goodwill will make of you tomorrow. Don't worry about tomorrow. Only God could say what this new spirit gradually forming within you will be. Give our Lord the benefit of believing that his hand is leading you, and accept the anxiety of feeling yourself in suspense and incomplete. God is making all things new, and God calls us. Love, true love, necessitates action. Love enables us. We are sent by love. And we are sending Beth and Joel again, and this time they are going. And I would like to pray over them if they would come forward. And would you all stand if you are able? And maybe, put out your hand as an instrument of prayer and blessing over Beth and Joel. And let's pray for their time. Holy God, thank you for those beautiful people who love so much and so well. Thank you for their family and for the people of their community that go together to serve together in Haiti. We pray for your angels to be around them, surrounding them and going before them, that you, Christ, are already there in Haiti, and each airport, each step of the way, help them to know surely and without any doubt that God, you are with them always. And we are with them in our spirit and our prayers. Thank you. And we ask these things in Jesus' name and because we can. Amen. Amen.